Hi, Barbara. Okay, my name is Pam Fox, and you can find more about me at pamfox.org. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about gut health and what it means to heal the gut. So this is something that, a term that you may hear frequently. And so what does that mean? And so basically, gastrointestinal conditions are very prevalent. They're very common in our country and around the world. And when we think of a gastrointestinal condition, basically what we have is an injury to part of your anatomy in the gut. Okay, so we have an injury. And so the question then becomes, why do we have an injury? Why would we have an injury to our stomach, for example? So, so some of the different common conditions, GERD is right at the top of the list, very, very common condition. Esophagitis, inflammatory bowel disease, IBS, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, which, by the way, if you stop and look at some of these different conditions, what you will begin to find that they have in common is inflammation. Okay, so ulcerative colitis, for example, ulcers of the colon, an inflamed colon. So anytime you see that itis, that itis at the end of a condition, that just means inflammation of the, okay, so ulcerative colitis is inflammation of the colon with ulcers. Okay, esophagitis, inflammation of the esophagus. Let's see, you get what I mean. So when you see that itis, it's just inflammation of the. And so why do we have inflammation becomes the question. So anytime we have inflammation anywhere in the body, it's the body's life-saving response to an injury, okay? Inflammation is the body's life-saving response to an injury. We have an injury and the body floods that injury with what's needed to begin the healing process. So inflammation in and of itself is a good life-saving thing. It's not a bad thing. When it becomes a problem is when we have chronic inflammation. Okay, so if you get a diagnosis, for example, of irritable bowel syndrome, for example, or IBD, inflammatory bowel disease. So these conditions have the inflammation involved, and it's because, and you're given a diagnosis because it's a chronic inflammation, which means it's ongoing inflammation. It means that you have inflammation all the time, or pretty much all of the time. It means that the healing can't take place of that injury, so you're always inflamed. You always have that inflammation. So if you have esophagitis, for example, you have inflammation of the esophagus, and it's always inflamed. The healing cannot take place. It is always inflamed. Okay, so and so then the question then becomes why? Why is it always inflamed? And so really the answer is quite clear when it comes to the gastrointestinal system. That is the system that receives food, right? It receives food, it receives beverage. That is the system that everything we eat and drink goes through. And so if we begin to have chronic, ongoing, long-term inflammation of any part of that system, then that means that maybe we need to take a look at what we're eating and what we're drinking, okay? Because if we're eating once a day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day, and we're continually re-injuring that system so that that inflammation can't do its job and heal the injury and move on, then we need to take a look at what we're eating. That's number one. And so in this video, I just want to give a few suggestions of some things that you can try to begin to heal your gut. Because after all, and I'm sure you've heard this before, that all healing, regardless of what your condition is, whether it's something somewhat minor or major, that all healing begins in the gut. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I personally believe that most of us, especially in this country and other countries that eat similarly to us, have a not so healthy gut, Even if you're eating optimally or suboptimally, And that's for a variety of reasons. One, if you're eating a lot of foods, animal foods in particular, highly processed foods, so you're less of a plant-based eater and more, you know, animal foods and junk foods of a kind of an eater, then you're going to have long-term sustained injury to your digestive system because of the pathogens, toxins, and parasites that are regularly in those foods. Hi everybody. My comments aren't scrolling for some reason, so I'm not seeing your comments. Okay, so that's number one, is, you know, a diet that is high, our dietary sources coming from animal foods and junk foods can create that inflammation, can create those injuries, which create that long-term ongoing inflammation. Another problem is, even if you do eat a suboptimal or optimal diet, high in fiber, high in plant foods, one of the problems remains is the quality of our food. And so when we begin to look at the gut microbiota and the diversification of bacteria within our gut, what we will commonly see is a lack of diversity. And that's really kind of where I want to camp on in this video today, is the gut microbiota and the lack of diversity of bacteria within the digestive system. And so it becomes very clear when we start to, and unfortunately, whenever I try to learn more about the gut microbiota and the flora and all of that, I come across the same thing over and over, and that is that it is a very pioneered research phase on this topic. And so they will commonly say we know very little. There is much research to be done, but what you do see over and over again when we look at the studies and the research that's being done is you will see that when it comes to healthy people versus unhealthy people, when it comes to obese people versus lean people, when it comes to testing fecal samples that are from the African Americans that live in this country versus African Americans from their home country. When they look at bacteria, samples of soil in different regions within a state, or within different states within a country, or even the soil compared, organic farming versus unorganic farming, what they see over and over again, the pattern is that diversity versus lack of diversity. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that when you take a healthy person, for example, versus an unhealthy person, and you look at the fecal samples of those people, you will find in the healthy person a lot of different, so that diverse bacteria, a lot of different bacteria versus not so many bacteria. So it's not so much a good versus bad bacteria as much as it is that a diverse versus a non-diverse element of bacteria within the gut. And so what does this mean for us then when it comes to our health is basically that all of these different bacteria have different jobs within our body. Okay, we have trillions of bacteria in and around and on our bodies, and they all have different jobs to do. And so if you're lacking a specific bacteria, then you're lacking that function within your body. And so then when it comes to even eating a healthy diet, so you've heard of the danger of lectins and the danger of phytates and oxalates and gluten and some of these different foods that people are trying to avoid. So they're avoiding grains and they're avoiding beans and so forth, is because then your body then becomes unable to break down these very natural components in plant foods that an otherwise healthy person is perfectly able to break down. Okay, so if we're missing that diversity in the gut biome, that diverse bacterial flora, then that means all of those functions from all of those bacteria is missing to deal with, again, different components such as the oxalates, phytates, lectins, and glutens. And so then what can we do? What can we begin to do to address the inflammation, to address the injury, heal the injuries, and diversify our gut biome? How do we do that? So that's going to be different for everybody. Unfortunately, there is no one answer to answer that. But if there were one answer, the answer would lie within plant foods. And I'm not saying that you have to go on a whole foods, plant-based, disciplined, full throttle, vegan diet for the rest of your life. Although if you want to do it, I've been doing it now for a little over 4 years and I'm thriving. I've never been healthier. So until that changes, that's the diet that I will continue to be on. However, you could look at a plant-based diet or as a cleanse. You could do it as a temporary cleanse. It just depends on where your level of health is. How sick are you and how desperate are you to regain your health? So, you know, for some people, simply adding in more plant foods, adding in more vegetables, doing things like, you know, whole juices with, you know, greens and cucumbers and celery and cabbage, carrots and beets, that kind of a thing, to put in more nutrition and to help diversify the gut biome. For some people, that's enough. So eating more plant foods is the number one thing that you can try. And I would say the number one thing that you can do to begin to diversify your gut biome, which is going to begin to help address those injuries and reduce that inflammation within the gut. Okay? Moving on to fermented foods. So when it comes to fermented foods, they are going to be much richer in bacteria and probiotics. And so that's another way you can introduce and recolonize those bacteria and create more diversity within the gut, is by introducing fermented foods. And so I'm talking about foods like sauerkraut. And so it has to be a naturally, you know, not like the sauerkraut on the shelf in the store. It has to be in the refrigerator section, or you can make it yourself. It's really easy and cheap to make yourself. Also things like kimchi and natto and tempeh. Vinegars with the mother in them, so vinegars that haven't been pasteurized. Wesley asks, can you please advise me the best whole food plant-based diet? I really want to start but don't know where to start. Yes, Wesley, hopefully I won't forget, but at the end of this video I will give you some resources. So number one is eating a plant-based diet, and number two is eating fermented foods. And another thing I would suggest is kombucha. Kombucha is a really easy way to get in those healthy natural probiotics. I think it's a really easy way. I love sauerkraut and, you know, things like tempeh. It's just not something I have on hand very often, but to me, kombucha, you know, you can stop in the store and buy a bottle of kombucha, or you can buy it in bulk and have it in your refrigerator. You can get it on tap at places like Whole Foods and natural grocers. You can make it yourself, really, really cheap and easy. So those are some ideas, and obviously you can take a probiotic as well to introduce more probiotics and diversify your bacteria that way. All right, I'm just checking my notes. All right, so one of the things that's kind of a pioneering research is this idea of fecal transplants. And so if you haven't heard of fecal transplants, it's exactly what you imagine it to be. It's where they take the fecal matter of a healthy person. Hey, Lucy, how are you? Of a healthy person, and they transplant it into a sick individual. Again, just to try to recolonate those healthy bacteria and diversify the bacteria within the gut biome. Another fermented food that I missed is coconut milk kefir and also water kefir. My mom has been doing water kefir for a couple of months now, and she swears by it. She is absolutely loving it. So that's something you can look into, and it's pretty easy to make and really, really cheap. I mentioned vegetable juices. So I've talked about vegetable juices here on this channel before. And vegetable juices are a great way to recolonize bacteria within the gut, especially if they are organic. So when it comes to organic vegetables, they have this biofilm. The vegetable is enclosed in an invisible biofilm. They're basically covered with natural, healthy, good bacteria. And so you put those through the juicer, and that's a great way to reseed bacteria. And it's delicious as well. I absolutely love homemade juices. They're very refreshing, they're very delicious, they give me energy, and they just make me feel great. Okay, Lucy asks, I'm now taking a probiotic and multi-enzymes. Any you suggest are better than others? No, Lucy, sorry, I don't give recommendations for specific brands of any supplements. Sometimes I share what I'm taking, but my best suggestion would be to, when you're looking up different brands of supplements to purchase, that you just go through and read the reviews, read the reviews. That's all I do. Or I do have a naturopath, so I work with a naturopath, and if she recommends a specific brand, I will go with that. Sometimes I will buy them at Costco just because they're the cheapest. I personally don't take a lot of supplements. I have taken probiotics. I will maybe do a course of probiotics. I've probably done 2 courses of probiotics in the last 4 years. So once every 2 years, just for the hell of it. I do take B vitamin supplements, and I get those from my naturopath, and that's all I'm taking right now. So, but I've taken other, gut healing supplements in the past when I was first starting my journey, which we're going to talk about. And again, I just go on and read the reviews, see what other people are saying. And I know you can't put all of your trust into, reading other people's reviews, but that's what I do. So another thing that you can do that's very beneficial is to grow your own food. And I know this isn't practical or realistic for everybody, but again, when you grow your own natural, organic, seasonal food, it's going to have the highest levels of those natural bacteria on the food, because it's going to exist naturally in the soil. If it's organic and you're not putting pesticides and herbicides on your garden, which, obviously you don't want to do that, but you can also buy organic food as well. Local and organic is best. Sprouting is really good, so you can sprout seeds. I would advise, if you're going to sprout seeds, that you buy them in bulk, like through Amazon, through an organic farm. Buy them in bulk. When I first started sprouting seeds, I would just buy a little packet at a time. Oh, that's good to hear, Lucy. Oh, that's really good to hear. Yeah, keep taking your B12. That's important. And congratulations on your move. I always enjoy your pictures. You're such a beautiful lady. So sprouting, I made the mistake when I first started sprouting of, just buying a little seed, and I would sprout, and I would love the sprouts, and I would eat the sprouts, and then they'd be gone, and then, I would get busy and I would forget to sprout again. But if you've got a big, economy size bag of sprouts, like alfalfa seeds or broccoli seeds or whatever it is that you want to sprout, and you've got a sprouting system, which if you don't have a sprouting system, just Google it. Go on YouTube. There's 100 different ways that you can sprout. You can probably have supplies in your house to sprout with. You can do it in a canning jar, in a mason jar, or you can buy a fancy sprouter. I actually have a fancy sprouter, and I think I'm going to get rid of it and just transition over to sprouting in a mason jar because it's a lot easier. But also a great way to recolonize beneficial bacteria. And then, I just wanted to mention, for some people, at the beginning I said that for some people they have great results just by going on a whole foods plant-based diet. For others, that's not the case. So if you're really missing a lot of that beneficial bacteria, then when it comes to even digesting something simple like fruit, if you're missing that bacteria that's going to break down the fructose, for example, you're going to have bloating and stomach discomfort, and you can have belching. You can have SIBO, which is a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. If you're missing the proper bacteria that are needed to, again, they all have a different function. So the more diversity you have within the gut, the better off and the healthier you're going to be. So if you're missing a lot of that beneficial bacteria and you start to eat a lot of plant foods and you notice that you're feeling worse, then you may have to take additional steps. Again, maybe taking a probiotic, maybe eating very simple foods like steamed vegetables, tender greens, no raw, crunchy broccoli and cabbage and carrots and things like that, because all of that fiber, again, you're not going to have the beneficial bacteria that's needed to break down that fiber. Yes, I will, Lucy. Thank you for reminding me. I'm going to get to that in just a minute. I think I have 2 more points and then I'll get to that. So just eating foods that are very gentle on your system. Again, tender greens, steamed vegetables, Avocado is fine. You can make a nice avocado and a little bit of lemon dressing and put it on something like sprouted quinoa, which is very easy to digest, with some tender greens and some steamed vegetables and a nice dressing with some avocado and lemon and salt and pepper, any herbs and spices that you like. So this style of eating is going to be very gentle on your digestive tract as you're beginning to reintroduce and recolonize that bacteria while bringing the inflammation down, addressing the injured organs, but getting that nutrition in as well, and transitioning you know, slowly, instead of bombarding the system with foods that are going to be more difficult to digest when you're missing the appropriate bacteria. Okay, so I wanted to mention supplements, and then I'm going to move on to resources. So what did I want to mention about supplements? Yeah. So when it comes to a damaged gut, so a lot of different things can happen when we think about a damaged or injured gut. I mean, again, I already mentioned some of the conditions that you can have. Increased gut permeability, you've probably heard of leaky gut. So when we think of the stomach, for example, what's in the stomach is meant to be contained in the stomach and move in one direction. So what's in the, you know, in the large intestine and the small intestine is meant to be contained and then move in one direction. Yes, there's a certain amount of permeability in the intestines where then the nutrients begin to permeate through the intestines and then, you know, do what they need to do, which is go elsewhere in the body and nourish the body. But when we have increased permeability, you can think of it as like a breach in the system where now food particles, dangerous toxins, bacteria, and parasites are now able to permeate or leak out of the gut. And so everything I've been talking about is one way to begin to, you know, bring down that inflammation, heal those injuries, and increase and decrease the permeability of the lining, that damaged lining within the gut. And so everything I've been talking about is how you can begin to do that, but you can also, above and beyond that, you can address that with supplements. And obviously that's something you can work with your doctor, specifically, you know, a homeopath or, you know, functional medicine practitioner, somebody who knows about this stuff, who believes in this stuff, and who has had success with their patients in healing the gut through these avenues. And so there are a lot of different supplements, additional supplements they can put you on that will address leaky gut and healing the gut and bringing that inflammation down so you don't have all those leaks within the gut, okay? So some resources then for you guys. I wish I had like a book or a health or a meal plan I can sell to you guys, because but I don't. I usually just refer you to other people. So there's a lot out there actually. I mean, you can get on Google and you can start researching it yourself. There are a lot of different free and paid resources when it comes to learning how to eat plant-based and heal your gut. Some of the ones that I recommend right off the top of my head are John McDougall. So you can go to his website, Dr. John McDougall. He has meal plans. He has testimonials on there of people who have healed their gut and hundreds of other diseases on a plant-based diet, and educational videos on there. He also has, well, go check it out and you can see for yourself. There's the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, aka, PCRM. So you can check out their website. Same thing, recipes, meal plans, testimonials, education. And as far as I know, both of those, I know John McDougall gives away his meal plans for free. I think PCRM, they used to give them away for free. I haven't been over there for a while. And then there's also Forks Over Knives. They used to give away everything for free. I know now they have a paid and a free plan. So in other words, I think it's like, you know, there's the free meal plan, and then if you want more recipes, you can pay. Or they might do like a 30-day trial or something like that. So thanks, Lucy. So those three, John McDougall, PCRM, oh, and Forks Over Knives. Check those out. And then Let's see if I can really quick. There's a new one I found recently that I really like. Oh, what is his name? What is his name? What is his name? Give me 1 second. Well, you know what? I will just post it below. There's a guy I've been following on YouTube. He's actually an animal rights activist, but he has, yeah, cool. Thanks, Lucy. He has a free meal plan on his site that I think is really, really good. So I'll have to look that up. I'm having trouble remembering his name, and I will post it in the comments below. So yeah, you guys can check those out, but really there are so many available resources. There really are. Again, free and paid. Just got to get online and start looking around. But the ones those top 3 that I mentioned, I like to refer all of those because in my opinion, they're super healthy and they're super practical. So when I first went on a plant-based diet and I first started experimenting with, vegan, whole foods, plant-based nutrition, I hadn't even heard of any of these, and I did more of just a really hardcore, what I would call a less realistic diet where I was eating all raw food until 4 o'clock. And I don't discourage you from doing something like that. I think it's a really healthy way to eat, but it's very expensive. And I felt like I was force feeding myself because I was eating so much food. So the Dr. McDougall's plan, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and Forks Over Knives, I just think they're very, very practical ways of eating and very, very healthy. Okay? All right, so that's it for today. I do have an announcement coming up, but, well, I'll just mention it really quick here. See me on Monday. I'm going to be doing a live. I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Cliff Higgins at, I believe, 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. And he is reversing his hiatal hernia naturally, and he's going to be sharing his story. So stay tuned for that this Monday, I believe, at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. Yes. All right. Thanks for watching.